Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to Audiobook Dynasty. If you want early access and even more parts for free, make sure to join me on Patreon. The first half of the Grand Line. The Calm Belt, where Impel Down lies the world's most infamous prison, housing countless dangerous criminals. Within its towering walls, some of the most feared pirates with bounties in the hundreds of millions languish, imprisoned in cells designed to contain their unparalleled brutality. Especially infamous is the sixth level, Eternal Hell. Those who are sent to Eternal Hell are no ordinary criminals. Each is a monstrous figure, a name long seared into history, their very existence a national threat. Anyone who might escape this level could wreak havoc on an unimaginable scale. In this abyss where life sentences and death penalties are commonplace, a new prisoner of world-shaking renown is about to be added. Hey, did you hear? Fleet Admiral Sengoku and Vice Admiral Garp have defeated the Golden Lion Shiki and are escorting him here to Eternal Hell. Yet, I heard the director, deputy director, and all the chief guards are involved in the transfer. It's rare to see such a high-security escort like this. The last time was, what, not long ago? When the Pirate King Roger was brought in. Roger, and now Golden Lion. Two legendary pirates are off the seas. Hard to believe. Can you imagine? Golden Lion invaded Marine headquarters all by himself. He really is the definition of a pirate. What a madman. In the lounge on the first floor, a crowd of guards gathered, voices buzzing with talk of Golden Lion's imminent imprisonment. Around a dozen jailers shared stories, their conversation lively and animated. Listening quietly, a black-haired youth of 16 or 17 showed a strange glimmer in his otherwise stoic eyes. So, he's finally here. Golden Lion Shiki. The young man felt a surge of excitement. His name was Alex, and this was the name he carried in this world. A year and a half ago, he'd been thrust into this world by an inexplicable twist of fate. It hadn't taken him long to recognize that he was now living in the world of One Piece. At first, he'd been thrilled he was inside a world he'd long known and loved. With his knowledge of the story, he imagined he held a powerful advantage. But reality quickly tempered his excitement. Impel Down, one of the world government's three most heavily fortified institutions, the infamous Hell on Earth, had become his prison as well, though in the form of a role as a low-ranking guard. While he wasn't an inmate, the assignment came with its own kind of lifelong sentence, barring escape or advancement. Except extraordinary circumstances, guards rarely left Impel Down before serving decades of monotonous and perilous duty. As a mere teenager in this world, Alex faced the grim prospect of spending 30 to 40 years confined to this harsh place. The idea of wasting his youth here, in a hostile environment, was disheartening, especially with his knowledge of the vast, adventure-filled world outside. But Alex wasn't completely powerless. Inside his body, he could feel the presence of a mysterious fruit. He understood that he could summon it at will, and, miraculously, he knew how it worked. This wasn't a typical devil fruit, it lacked a unique ability and felt hollow, like an empty vessel. However, Alex knew it had potential. It was a fruit with the power to steal abilities. If a devil fruit user were to die, this fruit could absorb their abilities, allowing him to access them himself. It was similar to the dark fruit, which allowed Blackbeard to seize the powers of others, but with a twist. This mysterious fruit imposed a limit of 2 abilities in total, meaning Alex could potentially wield 2 devil fruit powers simultaneously and fully. For now, though, the fruit lay dormant within him, waiting for its first opportunity. The heaven-defying ability hidden within Alex is undoubtedly his greatest trump card, his ticket to escape from Impel Down and rewrite his destiny. Impel Down is packed with devil fruit users, making it the most convenient place for him to hunt for powers despite his current limitations. After all, the prison's policy of permanently detaining these individuals is meant to prevent their powers from reincarnating elsewhere in the world, curbing the spread of evil forces. But breaking this rule would bring severe punishment, and as a mere guard, Alex's fate would be bleak if caught. Thus, once he begins his plan to capture an ability, he must be prepared to escape this hellish place for good. Fortunately, his arrival in this world coincided with an extraordinary moment in history. Not long ago, the entire Grand Line had erupted in shock as the Roger pirates completed their conquest of the seas, with Roger himself officially recognized as the Pirate King. This critical bit of timing gave Alex the perfect target for his plan, Roger's former rival, the Golden Lion. With his limited strength, the float fruit stands out as the ideal ability to help him break free from this heavily fortified sea prison. This legendary fruit once granted Golden Lion Shiki command over the skies and the power to rule the seas from above, a fruit of extraordinary strategic power. It was an opportunity that felt almost like divine intervention. Determined, Alex set his plan into motion, devoting an entire year to meticulous preparation. He began by expanding his knowledge of this world and familiarizing himself with the inner workings of Impel Down. He trained his body, practiced shooting, and gathered supplies, including venom, while slowly adjusting to the prison's horrors. Coming from the modern world, Alex initially found the environment of Impel Down shocking and horrifying. In those early days, he would gag or look away in disgust at some of the atrocities he witnessed. But over time, his outlook hardened, and he fully grasped the brutal nature of this world, a place where the weak had no control over their own lives. After a year in this hellish prison, he could watch prisoners be devoured by jailer beasts or even personally carry out executions without flinching. He'd gained control over his emotions, his reactions now measured and cold, his mind focused on survival. It was under these conditions that Alex heard today's momentous news. Golden Lion Shiki had been captured after a brutal battle with the Marines and was en route to Impel Down. After nearly a year in this nightmarish prison, Alex finally saw a path to freedom and the chance to acquire true power. And the timing couldn't have been more perfect. Shiki, now badly injured and heavily weakened, would be locked in the eternal hell on the 6th level. Due to the unique isolation of this floor, no surveillance den mushi were installed, creating the perfect opportunity for Alex to make his move. The Golden Lion's weakened state was the final piece of the puzzle, the ideal chance to seize the power he needed. A few days after the Golden Lion's imprisonment, news arrived that shook the world. The Pirate King, Gold Roger, had been publicly executed in Logue Town, East Blue. In the final moments before his death, Roger's last words turned the tides of history. Overnight, the seas teemed with new pirates more than had emerged in a full year before. His mention of the legendary treasure, the One Piece, ignited the dawn of the Great Pirate Era, its wild waves sweeping across the globe. Not even the fortified walls of Impel Down could block the world-shattering impact of this news. In Eternal Hell, the innermost and most secure level, even the most infamous criminals felt a surge of excitement. They were impatient, eager to break free and chase after the legendary treasure themselves. But one man lay quietly amid the unrest, sneering at the chaos outside, the Golden Lion. To him, the world meant little now that Roger was gone. Look at you now, a living legend, reduced to this. Shiki's dark reflections were interrupted by a voice outside his cell. Glancing up, he saw a guard in standard uniform, an ordinary, unremarkable young man peering through the bars. Shackled in sea stone and weakened beyond recognition, the once mighty Golden Lion Shiki was barely able to respond. Seeing that his presence had caught the infamous pirate's attention, Alex pressed on, determined to provoke him further. Legends like Gold Roger and the Golden Lion Shiki, both of you brought low by the Marines. It seems that even the greatest eventually become history. Shiki gave a soft snort at this, but didn't respond, his pride visibly stung by the young man's words. Though he had once ravaged Marine headquarters, today he lay here defeated, his power bound and body worn to the bone. In his current state, even an ordinary man could have ended his life. Alex saw the flicker of irritation and leaned in, seizing the moment. But did you know, Shiki? Rumor has it that Roger turned himself in. They say he willingly surrendered to bring about this new age. Shiki's eyes snapped open, a sudden fury flaring within them. Like a wounded beast given a second wind, he lunged forward, gripping the bars of his cell with surprising strength. His glare bored into Alex, his face twisted in rage. What did you say? He spat, his voice charged with disbelief. Roger surrendered himself. Alex had expected this reaction but couldn't help feeling a shiver as he stared into the wrathful eyes of the once mighty pirate. However, after spending over a year in Impel Down, Alex maintained his composure and continued, if the Pirate King hadn't turned himself in, then why did Roger's crew stay quiet until his execution without attempting a rescue? He let the question hang for a moment, watching Shiki's reaction. And doesn't it strike you as strange that, after years of eluding capture, the Marines suddenly managed to bring him in so easily? Shiki's face shifted, then he grinned, almost with a hint of relief. Ha! I knew it, Roger would never be captured by those Marine weaklings. For him, Alex's words had hit home. His emotions, tangled and raw from Roger's death, made him receptive to anything that spoke to his heart. Alex sensed the effect and pressed on, knowing Shiki's pride in Roger wouldn't allow him to believe otherwise. Roger! You conquered the sea, but why would you die just to start such a meaningless era? Shiki's voice grew angrier, his tone bitter. If only you'd joined me back then, we could have ruled the world. Why did you throw it all away? Pirates are meant to reign over the seas. Fueled by Alex's words, Shiki's suppressed emotions erupted, filling the dark cell with his voice. In his weakened state, he appeared almost frenzied, his pride and grief over Roger's death twisting his expression. Seeing Shiki lost in his emotions, Alex suppressed the urge to overplay his hand and instead leaned closer. Slowly, he reached behind himself with his right hand. Because Roger was already terminally ill. Shiki's eyes widened, barely registering the gun now pointed at his head, his focus fully on Alex's revelation. Roger was sick, he managed, his voice unsteady. Alex didn't hesitate. Yes. He had little time left. But after discovering the secret of Raftel, he couldn't let it die with him. His last act was to start this age of piracy, hoping that one day, someone would bring that secret back to light. He didn't allow Shiki much time to respond. The gun, equipped with a silencer, flared in the dark cell, the single muffled shot filling the silence. Boom! Shiki's body went still, his weakened form collapsing to the ground. His lifeless eyes stared forward, almost as if frozen in disbelief. Perhaps he couldn't accept dying at the hands of a mere prison guard, or maybe he couldn't bear the weight of Roger's fate. When it was done, Alex released a shaky breath and took a step back, feeling the tension leave his body. Even though the Shiki had been weakened, shackled in sea stone, and injured from the marine battle, he was still a legend, feared across the seas. Alex had taken every precaution, even going so far as to obtain venom from Magellan as a last resort. Failure would have meant certain death, but that seemed preferable to spending decades rotting in this prison. To his relief, it had worked. Roger's memory had been enough to distract Shiki, giving Alex the opening he needed. It was no wonder that even after his defeat by Luffy in that distant future, Roger's legacy was still the last thing on Shiki's mind. With the task complete, Alex reached within himself and summoned the mysterious fruit he possessed. As soon as he brought it close to Shiki's body, the fruit began to transform. Within moments, intricate patterns and a golden hue appeared on one half of the fruit, and he felt the float fruit's ability settle within him. A thrill of victory washed over him, his hands trembling with excitement. But there was no time to savor the feeling. He needed to act quickly. Suppressing his emotions, Alex hurried to the next special cell. Alex took advantage of the special circumstances. Most of the key personnel at Impel Down were occupied with a high-priority meeting to discuss strategies against the rising tide of great pirates. Meanwhile, the inspection team had been rendered helpless by a discreet dose of laxatives, allowing Alex to slip down to the secluded 6th-level eternal hell without attracting attention. Shiki was dead, and Alex knew he had only a brief window before the next inspection round, roughly 20 minutes. Time was tight, especially given the vastness of the 6th level. Quickening his pace, it took him about 5 minutes to reach a particular cell, isolated and bone-chillingly cold. Unlike other cells on this level, it lacked sea stone chains and instead held a giant, refrigerator-like apparatus. Inside was an old man with a green beard, his face lined with age and hardship. This was none other than the World Destroyer, Burndy World, frozen in suspended animation within the depths of eternal hell. Alex's target was World's Devil Fruit, the More Fruit. Although it wasn't his top choice for a second ability, it was essential for his escape. Among the powerful devil fruits imprisoned in Impel Down, the only one that rivaled the float fruit in utility was this one. Staring at the containment device, Alex noted there was no key to access it, which prevented him from directly destroying it. However, a tube connected to the apparatus allowed the jailers to replace World's nutrient solution without needing to unlock the chamber. This would now serve as Alex's entry point. His preparations over the past year had not been in vain. After obtaining a sample of Magellan's venom, Alex had conserved it carefully. Now, with the container in hand, he poured the entire violet liquid into the nutrient solution supply. In an instant, the vibrant green solution turned a sickly purple. Magellan's venom fruit ability was feared for good reason, and with this single, indirect maneuver, Alex had once again used Impel Down's own systems to eliminate a legendary pirate. Moments later, the once black fruit in his hand transformed, taking on a swirling pattern and a color unique to the More fruit. Without hesitation, Alex bit into it. The indescribably foul taste hit him instantly, but he gritted his teeth, held his breath, and consumed the entire fruit. Suppressing the urge to vomit, he focused on the strange sensations within his body. His cells seemed to pulse with newfound energy, resonating with the power of the fruit. Instantly, Alex felt the changes flood his senses, the abilities integrating with his own. At will, he could now make himself float, nullify the gravity of anything he touched, and freely control his flight. Furthermore, he could manipulate properties like the volume and speed of any object. Alex clenched his fists, exhilarated. This was true power. Even without haki, wielding these two devil fruit abilities placed him leagues above the average pirate. He stood among the strong now, a force to be reckoned with. Though he longed to laugh aloud and revel in his strength, he restrained himself. He knew that his moment of triumph would come only after he had broken free from Impel Down. That would be the perfect time to unleash the power that had finally set him apart from the ordinary. As Alex retraced his path, a sudden stream of information flooded his mind, detailing the abilities he had just acquired. Float fruit allows the user to make themselves or objects float in the air, negating gravity. It can also cause any touched objects whether living or non-living to float at will. More fruit grants the power to multiply the speed, strength, volume, and weight of any touched objects. Then, another set of information appeared before him. Float fruit, previous user, Golden Lion Shiki. More fruit, previous user, Burndy World. Please choose your representative ability. Alex blinked in surprise. Up until now, he thought he had no special advantage aside from possessing a devil fruit. But this new, system-like prompt presented him with an unexpected choice. Still, he couldn't afford to linger here, time was running short, with only a few minutes until the next patrol. He decided to make his way out of this hellish prison first and examine his options later. Upon reaching the elevator turn room, he encountered a squad of patrolling guards exiting the lift. "Why are you here alone?" the guard captain questioned, noticing Alex's solitary presence in this area. "My teammates passed by the deputy director's office earlier, and they seemed to inhale some kind of gas. They all rushed to the toilets, but I felt fine, so I came here to carry out the task," Alex replied smoothly. The guards exchanged a knowing glance, visibly disturbed by the explanation, but Alex simply nodded at them and walked toward the elevator. Bang! The elevator ascended, carrying Alex out of the 6th level. As he disappeared from sight, one of the guards muttered, "Poor guy, having to patrol this creepy place alone." "Tell me about it," another guard laughed. "But people in his team say he's a bit of a lone wolf, doesn't mind doing things solo." "All right, enough chatter," the captain interjected. "Let's finish our patrol and get out of here." The Eternal Hell on the 6th floor was the largest and most treacherous section of Impel Down, requiring a full team's effort just to patrol adequately. Looking back, the captain found it odd that Alex was alone and made a mental note to request another team for coverage next time. But he quickly dismissed it as just another quirk of an unusual guard. 5 or 6 minutes into their patrol, an urgent message suddenly crackled through the captain's transponder snail. "Captain, it's Shiki, Golden Lion Shiki, he's dead." "What?" The captain's face went pale as he sprinted toward the special containment area. When he arrived, his eyes fell upon Shiki's lifeless form, his eyes frozen in shock, with visible bullet holes piercing his skull. Trembling, the captain grabbed his transponder snail and began frantically reporting. "Director! Director! Golden Lion Shiki has been killed!" Dash! While chaos erupted on the 6th floor, Alex's elevator continued unimpeded, reaching the 1st floor above sea level. The sight of the outside world flooded him with relief and exhilaration. Once, he could only dream of escaping this place. Now, with his newfound abilities, freedom was within his grasp. And in a darkly ironic twist, he even felt gratitude toward Impel Down for unwittingly aiding his ascent to power. "Hey! What are you doing?" A guard spotted him heading toward the deck and raised his rifle in alarm. "Leaving this wretched place," Alex replied, not even turning around. To the guard's astonishment, Alex's body began to lift off the ground, defying gravity as he floated higher and higher into the open air. "Though I'll miss you all, I think it's time to say goodbye," he called out with a smirk. "Keep the coat as thanks for your hospitality." With those words, he released his prison guard coat, letting it drift down as he ascended into the sky, leaving Impel Down far below. Meanwhile, back in the Impel Down meeting room, where discussions on countermeasures for the Great Pirate Era were still underway, Director Stain re-entered with a dark expression. His face alone confirmed what everyone in the room had already overheard via the Den Mushi: something terrible had happened. Stain's voice was grim as he announced, "Golden Lion Shiki is dead." He continued, his expression even darker, "and World Destroyer Burndy World is dead as well." "What?" Deputy Director Magellan's eyes widened in shock, his hands gripping the table as he absorbed the news. Across from him, the ever-calm watchman Shiryu looked more curious than shocked. "Do you know who's responsible?" he asked. While Shiryu occasionally dealt harshly with troublesome inmates, he had never considered touching high-priority prisoners like those in Eternal Hell. The sudden deaths of such powerful captives caught even him off guard. Stain's answer was steady, though his tone was laced with anger. "A guard named Alex." It's clear he was well prepared for this. He cast a pointed look at Magellan before explaining, he managed to extract a sample of Magellan's venom, using it to discreetly poison his teammates through inhalation. Under the pretense of continuing his duties, he descended to the 6th level alone. During that time, he executed Golden Lion Shiki with a firearm and poisoned Burndy World to death. Boom! Magellan's fist hit the table hard, his face twisted with frustration. "This was my oversight. I didn't notice that the venom had gone missing. When we catch him, I'll personally interrogate him for his motives." Stain shook his head. "It's too late. He's already escaped." According to a guard on the 1st floor, Alex appeared to float into the air and then simply flew away. "The float fruit," Shiryu muttered, his eyes narrowing. "So that's why he killed Shiki, to steal his ability." "We can't be certain," Stain replied, though he hesitated. "Perhaps he already had access to some flying ability. But you're right, Shiryu, it's a strong possibility." The idea of someone killing a legendary pirate like Golden Lion just to gain their devil fruit power seemed outlandish. Yet, Alex's movements over the past year indicated he was no ordinary jailer. His actions suggested not revenge but a calculated plan, waiting for the right moment to strike. Without further certainty, there was little left to analyze. Soon after, an urgent report was dispatched to the World Government and Naval Headquarters, bearing news of the Impel Down breach and the calculated murders of 2 infamous prisoners. As news of the murders spread through the world government and naval headquarters, the culprit, Alex, was already soaring recklessly over the endless sea. So this is the world through Golden Lion's eyes, the view of a man who ruled the seas from the sky, Alex mused, looking down from high altitude. Everything below appeared minuscule, and a surge of exhilaration filled him as he floated far above, feeling like a true conqueror. Who would have thought that not long ago, he was just a low-ranking guard? Yet now, within a matter of hours, he possessed two of the world's most powerful devil fruit abilities. The dream he had long buried was finally within reach. He hadn't forgotten the lingering choice he still needed to make. Spotting an island in the calm belt below, he descended, choosing a place he believed to be deserted. Landing carefully on a towering tree, he took a deep breath, then focused on the mysterious selection that had appeared in his mind. Two cards materialized before him, one displaying Golden Lion Shiki, and the other Burndy World. Each card bore the label template. Pondering the choices, Alex absorbed the details relayed to him. This mysterious ability was indeed his cheat, allowing him to inherit a defeated user's abilities and talents as templates, providing him with the benefits of their skills and talents at accelerated growth rates. However, there was a catch: he could only select one template, despite wielding both devil fruits. Examining each, he saw Golden Lion Shiki's talents: Armament Haki, Observation Haki, Conqueror's Haki, and Mastery in Great Swordsman's Kendo. Burndy World's talents: Armament Haki, Observation Haki, and Knowledge of Marine Rokushiki techniques. The choice was obvious. The Marine Rokushiki skills, while practical, were skills he could learn elsewhere. Without hesitation, he selected the Golden Lion Shiki template. Immediately, it felt as if Shiki's strength and skills were fusing with his own. Conqueror's Haki, although he didn't fully understand its use yet, he felt an innate familiarity with it, as though wielding it would come naturally in time. The same was true of swordsmanship: if he picked up a sword now, it would feel as comfortable in his hands as if he'd been training with it for a year. Excitement coursed through him. He couldn't resist testing his new abilities. Jumping down from the tree, he landed smoothly, then picked up a fallen branch and visualized it as a sword. He let his newfound swordsmanship perception guide him as he struck at the large tree before him. Whoosh! No sword energy burst forth, but the speed of his strike cut cleanly through the air. The flimsy branch left a shallow gash on the massive tree trunk. The death of the Golden Lion and Burndy World. After much deliberation, the world government decided to publicize Alex's crimes through a new bounty notice. Once an obscure prison guard, Alex became infamous across the seas in a single day when his story hit the newspapers. Known as the corrupt jailer, Alex was accused of poisoning over 10 fellow guards and escaping after slaying both the legendary Golden Lion Shiki and the infamous world destroyer Burndy World within Impel Down. Rumors circulated that he possessed the ability to fly, and his bounty was set at 170 million berries. In a time where major incidents shook the world, Alex's feat of defeating the Golden Lion still sent ripples across the seas. To incite the public, the world government crafted a narrative that cast Alex as a menace to society. By presenting him as a hardened criminal, they drew attention to his defeat of a notorious pirate, distracting people from the fact that Alex had once been just another prison guard. Many across the world were startled, mourning the Golden Lion's mysterious end in prison. Others were astonished that a low-ranking jailer dared to stand up to such infamous figures. Some were even angered and vowed to remember Alex's face from the bounty poster, determined to make his life difficult. However, only a select few noticed something familiar in the bounty image. As they studied the figure standing in mid-air, memories of the Golden Lion resurfaced, casting an eerie resemblance between Alex and the pirate of legend. Yet, with no concrete evidence, these thoughts lingered as mere speculation. What was undeniable, though, was that Alex's name was now burned into the minds of these people. 3 months passed as the incident simmered in the minds of the public, but with the onset of new crises in the Great Pirate Era, Alex gradually faded from memory. Present day, a remote island in the calm belt. Under the canopy of a colossal tree, its trunk tens of meters thick, the sharp sound of slicing wind echoed through the forest. The trunk was covered in rough, jagged sword marks, the scars of 3 months' relentless practice. Standing before it, Alex took a steadying breath, his energy centered and concentrated. With his right hand gripping a wooden sword he'd crafted himself, he readied for the next strike. Ha! He exhaled, his focus unyielding, and swung the wooden blade. It cut through the air with a crack like thunder, striking the tree with explosive force and leaving a fresh mark, 7 or 8 centimeters deep, across the trunk. Alex's expression remained calm as he immediately readied his stance and swung again. Drawing on the swordsmanship instincts inherited from the Golden Lion, he unleashed a fluid sequence of precise and powerful strikes, each move building on the last as he honed his technique. Chop, chop, pick, stab. One strike after another, relentless as a storm, Alex unleashed his blows. The sound of crackling explosions filled the air, clear and sharp, echoing through the forest. This continued for hours. Finally, with a final horizontal slash, Alex embedded his wooden sword deep into the cracked surface of the log, signaling the end of his grueling training session. Drenched in sweat, he caught his breath, reflecting on his progress. Though he possessed powerful devil fruit abilities and natural talent, Alex knew he still lacked the experience and discipline to fully wield them. After each session, the exhaustion he felt reminded him of the need to strengthen his body if he wanted to maximize his powers. Determined to convert his raw talent into true strength, Alex threw himself into a rigorous regimen, practicing haki and swordsmanship during the day, followed by fruit ability and physical conditioning at night. He continued until fatigue overtook him, then used his powers to find a safe place to rest, pushing himself to his limits daily. Strangely, over the past 3 months, Alex noticed something unusual. Even after pushing himself to exhaustion by midnight, he would awaken the next morning feeling surprisingly rejuvenated, often recovering more than half his energy overnight. Each morning, he sensed tangible improvements over the previous day, though he wasn't sure if this was due to honing the skills of Shiki, or simply a side effect of the unique food sources on the island. Either way, with no signs of adverse effects, Alex intensified his training further. 3 months passed. While his swordsmanship hadn't yet reached mastery, he had begun to grasp the basics of observation haki and armament haki. His physical growth was even more noticeable. His stamina and strength had increased tenfold since his days at Impel Down. As he wiped the sweat from his brow, feeling his breath come short, Alex silently cursed his limited stamina. He pulled his wooden sword free from the log, examining its cracked surface from countless impacts. This sword was destined to join the growing pile of split wooden blades around him. In moments like these, he regretted not taking Shiki's Odo and Kogarashi, legendary swords that might have propelled his skill to new heights. While a true swordsman like Dracula Mihawk could hold his ground with even a small blade, reaching such mastery where simplicity could resist Zoro's three-sword style was a realm far beyond his current abilities. However, wielding a famous sword might bring him closer to the true depth of swordsmanship. After a short half-hour break, Alex tossed aside the wooden sword and prepared for the final physical training session of the day. He ate a hearty meal of fish, the catch of the day being a massive specimen over 2 meters long, and began his night training. Lacking access to systematic physical training methods, Alex relied on his rough memories from another life. He engaged in push-ups, long-distance running, weighted exercises, and any activity that pushed him to his limits. Step by step, he broke through his boundaries, continuously improving. Not only was his physical strength increasing, but his body and spirit were growing tougher through sheer force of will, honed by the relentless, day-by-day challenge to his limits. Each day, he could feel a difference, a slight but steady advancement. The physical changes and resilience he was building pushed Alex to grit his teeth and endure the grind of daily training. Fueled by progress, he tackled each monotonous session with determination, shaping himself one step at a time. Time flowed like a fleeting moment. As Alex remained fully absorbed in his training, 4.5 years passed in the blink of an eye. Throughout this time, the turbulent waves of the Great Pirate Era continued to rage. Since the Sea Circle calendar year 1500, following the successive downfalls of legendary pirates Roger and the Golden Lion, the once vast territories and influences held by the Roger Pirates and the Flying Pirates became key contributors to the growing chaos in the New World. At its height, one of the most monumental clashes erupted between the Whitebeard Pirates and the Big Mom Pirates. Shortly after the Golden Lion's demise, Whitebeard, the only legendary pirate still active, began asserting his strength across the New World. Countless challengers flocked to test him, yet they either joined him or faced annihilation. Over a grueling 2.5-year campaign against the Big Mom Pirates, Whitebeard emerged victorious, securing nearly a third of the New World territories. Among his spoils were nearly a dozen ships once loyal to the Golden Lion. This relentless conquest cemented the Whitebeard Pirates as the world's largest and most powerful pirate fleet. Despite facing setbacks, Big Mom's forces expanded their Tato land territory by dozens of nautical miles, solidifying their rule over the 10,000 kingdoms and further bolstering their influence. When news of the battle's sheer devastation between Whitebeard and Big Mom spread, the world stood in awe. With Roger's era seemingly at an end, Whitebeard and Big Mom were informally acknowledged as the two emperors of the sea in the New World. While these monumental clashes dominated headlines, other significant events also unfolded during these years. In 1501 of the Sea Circle calendar, the rising rookie Moria from the first half of the Grand Line led his crew in an ambitious assault on the Beast's pirates in the New World. However, Moria was ultimately defeated, his fleet destroyed, and he later accepted the world government's offer, becoming the second member of the 7 warlords of the sea, following Crocodile. In 1502, the archaeological sanctum in West Blue disappeared from history in a buster call launched by the world government, due to violations of their laws. That same year, the infamous Red Count Patrick Redfield clashed with Fleet Admiral Kong. Following a fierce battle, Redfield was captured and imprisoned in Impel Down. Now, in the year 1504, Halfway through the current sea circle calendar, a familiar giant island in the calm belt bore witness to another phenomenon. Boom! A thunderous tremor shook the heart of the island, reverberating across the land. Roar! The ear-splitting roar of a colossal beast rang out, mingled with powerful gusts and clouds of flying soil. The beast before him was an immense tiger, towering 8 meters tall. Its vicious fangs, massive limbs, and fearsome claws clearly marked it as a deadly creature, the undisputed king of this island's central forest. Yet, this apex predator, after dropping the elk it had been carrying at Alex's feet, displayed an almost human expression of fear and submission. Seeing this, Alex extended his hand toward the tiger. Instantly, the beast's eyes widened in alarm, as if recalling a terrible memory, and it bowed its head obediently, allowing Alex to stroke its fur. As Alex looked at this once imposing king of the forest, he couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. Only half a year ago, this tiger had been his most challenging opponent. Now, it cowered before him like a tame housecat. After 4.5 years of relentless training, Alex had transformed. Once slight of frame, he was now a powerhouse, his body strengthened by intense training and a diet rich in the island's bountiful game. He had grown from 1.7 meters to a towering 2.63 meters, and his strength had developed to a level worlds beyond his former self. In terms of haki, he had unlocked Conqueror's haki, and his mastery of armament haki had advanced to the emission technique, allowing him to project force without direct contact. He had even begun to grasp higher-level haki applications. As for his swordsmanship, although he hadn't yet crossed blades with other masters, he was confident he was approaching Golden Lion's level, already a formidable swordsman in his own right. His devil fruit abilities had also improved, thanks in part to his enhanced physical capabilities. Techniques like Shiki's Lion Menace, earth coiling, where massive rock formations could be raised from the ground, now felt effortless for Alex. It had taken 4.5 years of brutal training to bring him to this point, a transformation far beyond the ordinary. The benefits of modeling his training after Golden Lion Shiki extended beyond talent alone, they shaped his very cultivation. Driven by intense discipline, Alex had trained without rest or hesitation, reaping the rewards of every drop of blood and sweat. But now, he sensed himself nearing a bottleneck. For almost 3 years, he had dominated this remote island in the calm belt, yet the beasts here could no longer push him to new heights. While they had once provided valuable combat experience, he knew he needed something more, a challenge from worthy opponents who could test his mettle and push him to new limits. Gripping a well-cooked cut of venison, Alex decided it was time to venture back into the world. No amount of fighting with wild beasts could match the experience of clashing with truly strong opponents. Like the Straw Hats in the original story who grew through continuous battle, he would now take that path to convert his abilities into hard-won experience. With his mind set, Alex didn't delay. Finishing his last meal on the island, he activated his devil fruit powers, lifting himself into the air, much to the astonishment of the giant tiger, and departed. By the sea circle calendar year 1504, Alex knew, a significant event was set to unfold, the conflict between Kojiki Odin and the beast's pirates. In the aftermath, the Kojiki family would be overthrown, and Kaido's ally, Kurozumai Orokai, would seize control of Wano. Thinking about Wano stirred something in Alex. The isolated land held treasures that could empower even the mightiest pirate, abundant resources, masterful craftsmen, and most enticing of all, the ancient weapon Pluton. A warship capable of obliterating islands in a single strike, Pluton would amplify his float fruit abilities to devastating effect. With this in mind, Alex resolved to head toward Wano. But first, he glanced down at his rugged, primitive attire. Before stepping back into the world, he'd need to secure proper resources and equipment. Sabayati Archipelago. The end of the first half of the Grand Line and the gateway to the New World. Here, countless pirates gather from every corner of the world. Each one has survived the trials of the first half of the Grand Line, proving themselves elite. Among them is Alex, who, after securing supplies by various means, arrives at this fantastical island after a week of sailing. Sabayati is unlike the grim depths of Impel Down or the vast, untamed forests of the calm belt. Resin bubbles rise and dissolve in the warm sunlight, leaving misty trails in the air, creating an enchanting, dreamlike landscape. Alex finds himself captivated by the unique and otherworldly beauty of this pirate haven. Yet, he's fully aware that beneath the surface charm lies a place renowned for its chaos. As a critical point on the Grand Line, and with both the Holy Land of Marijois and naval headquarters nearby, Sabayati Archipelago brims with powerful underground forces. It's a hotspot for human trafficking, pirate skirmishes, and fierce power struggles. Knowing this, Alex has no intention of lingering. He has only 2 reasons for coming here. First, his original island in the calm belt lies relatively close. Second, he's hoping to find something useful in the infamous Sabayati auction house. Despite its chaotic underbelly, Sabayati boasts undeniable wealth, and the auction industry is particularly lucrative here due to the influence of the celestial dragons. But before heading to the auction house, there's somewhere else Alex is curious about. In front of him stands a bar in the illegal district of Grove 13, its sign reading boldly, Shuki's Rip-Off Bar. Alex opens the door and steps inside. The scene within is quiet, a black-haired woman sits at the bar, casually smoking a cigarette. No other patrons are around, and a certain heavyweight presence isn't in sight. The woman, Shuki, looks up, slightly surprised at the sight of Alex. With a warm smile, she greets him, "Welcome. And what would this handsome gentleman like to drink?" "Just plain whiskey," Alex replies, taking a seat at the bar. Shuki retrieves a bottle of whiskey from a wooden cabinet, fills a glass, and hands it to him. "Brother, I doubt you came all this way just for a drink," she says, her tone both inviting and probing. Alex smirks. "Naturally. Though it's my first visit here, I've heard all about the reputation of your establishment, Madam Boss. Indeed, this bar is infamous on Sabayati Archipelago for both its steep prices and its shrewd proprietress. The cost of a single drink here can be dozens of times that of any other tavern, and more than a few visitors have found themselves fleeced by Shuki and her capable staff. But for those in the know, the bar's true value lies in the information it offers. And while her prices may seem exorbitant, they're often the price of critical knowledge in the world of pirates." Seeing Shuki's calm smile, unfazed by his playful remark, Alex continued, "Besides the drink, I have some information I'd like to inquire about." "Oh? So you're a well-informed young man, aren't you?" Shuki's smile didn't falter. "So, what kind of information does my guest seek?" "About famous swords," Alex replied. "I'm looking for information on the great grade swords, specifically, the 21 great grade blades. And if possible, anything about the supreme grade swords as well." "A famous blade at the level of the great grade, A spark lit up in Shuki's eyes, and a shrewd merchant's look slowly took over her face. "You know, those renowned swords are one-of-a-kind treasures," she began. "There are 21 great grade blades, and 12 supreme grade swords. In some ways, they're even rarer than devil fruits." Alex stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. He knew that, since she hadn't declined right away and was talking up their value, she likely had useful information. "I don't have anything on the supreme grade swords," Shuki admitted. "But as it happens, I do have a lead on a great grade blade." She looked at Alex with a knowing smile. "How much is this information worth?" Alex asked without hesitation. Shuki held up a finger. 10 million berries. 10 million. Alex exclaimed. That was no small amount, especially for information alone, but given Shuki's reputation as a shrewd businesswoman, he chose not to argue. 10 million, she confirmed, offering no explanation. Her silence made it clear the price was final. Unbothered by the amount, Alex set a suitcase on the bar and said, "This is over 10 million berries." Shuki took a glance at the suitcase, smiling without counting it. "The great grade sword in question is Akazakura, and it just so happens that this famous blade is on Sabayati Archipelago. It's on this island." Alex couldn't hide his surprise. "That's right," Shuki said, reaching out to hand him a flyer. "It'll make an appearance this afternoon." Alex glanced at the flyer, which showed the details of an auction. It read, "Auction House Number 1 presents a grand event at 3 o'clock this afternoon." He sighed, feeling slightly duped, as he'd already planned on attending the auction. Still, he didn't take back the suitcase, he merely accepted the flyer, downed his whiskey in one gulp, and prepared to leave. The money had been stolen from others, so he wasn't particularly bothered. Besides, Shuki's information network might come in handy later, and he had no reason to spoil his relationship with her over 10 million berries. Unbeknownst to him, his easygoing attitude left Shuki with an improved impression of him. "Since you're such a good sport, I'll give you a hint," Shuki added with a smirk. "The great grade sword will appear alongside a devil fruit as the highlights of today's auction. The goods were acquired through rather shady means, and the owner is eager to offload them quickly. So, if you play your cards right, you might even snag them at a lower price." Alex nodded, thanking her, and then turned to leave. "Ah, handsome boy! You haven't paid for the drink yet," Shuki called after him as he reached the door. Without turning back, Alex pushed the door open and stepped outside, calling over his shoulder just before it closed, "I'll settle up next time." Watching him disappear, Shuki murmured with interest, "The man who tangled with Shiki and vanished for years, here he is at last." Located in Grove 1, this is the largest auction house on Sabayati Archipelago. As Alex stepped through the gate, he was met with a wall of noise, excited chatter filling the air. Inside, thousands of seats were packed in a circular arrangement around the central stage. The auction hadn't yet begun, but most seats were already occupied. After collecting his number from the welcoming attendant, Alex made his way to his assigned seat, number 403, following her enthusiastic guidance. Scanning his surroundings, he quickly noted the clear division in the seating arrangement, marking a sharp contrast in social status. His section was filled with pirates, outlaws, and common folk, individuals not held in high esteem by the world at large. Across the aisle, the other section was populated by nobility and influential figures, and he could feel the disdainful glances some of them cast toward his side. Despite this separation, the nobles showed no open objection to sharing the auction space. Perhaps it was out of respect for those running the event or the satisfaction of flaunting their wealth in such a public setting. After a half-hour wait, a spotlight illuminated the center stage, drawing everyone's attention and signaling the start of the event. The auction house fell silent. A dapper man in a suit stepped onto the platform, bowing deeply to the guests before moving to the podium and formally announcing the beginning of the auction. Snap! The host struck the gavel sharply, instantly igniting the atmosphere. A welcoming lady dressed in a bunny girl outfit gracefully emerged from backstage, holding a small bottle filled with a mysterious liquid. This, the host proclaimed, is a tonic developed by a certain medical nation. It promises to extend life and strengthen the body, a perfect remedy for anyone needing extra vitality, especially those recovering from strenuous activities. After some intense bidding, a nobleman in the VIP section claimed the tonic for 2.7 million berries. The auction rolled on, showcasing a variety of unique items, an advanced Gatling gun, reinforced combat armor, a finely crafted turret designed for pirate ships, and even one of the famous blades. Each item was met with a flurry of bids, pushing prices higher and higher. Interspersed with these artifacts, the auction also featured a darker display of human lives for sale. There were daughters of fallen aristocrats, slaves from defeated nations, pirates forced into labor, and renowned chefs and shipwrights, all brought onto the stage to be bought by eager bidders. For Alex, this was his first time experiencing an auction of this nature, and he watched with interest, waiting for the grand finale he knew was coming. Finally, after more than 30 items had been sold, the host cleared his throat and struck the gavel with a more deliberate, dramatic force than before. Now, we enter the grand finale of the evening. As soon as the words left his lips, the audience murmured with anticipation, some even rubbing their palms together, awaiting what was to come. From backstage, two bunny girl attendants emerged, one holding a long sword and the other a small black box. It was clear to everyone that these two items would be the highlight of the night. The host straightened, clearly thrilled to be presenting such rare treasures. This auction house is honored to bring these items before you tonight. Even here, such items are almost never seen. His words instantly focused all eyes on the stage. First, he announced, we present one of the 21 great grade blades, the famous sword known as Akazakura. Also referred to as a cursed sword, its dark red scabbard is engraved with sakura blossoms from top to bottom, and its blade is razor sharp, slicing iron as if it were mud. The host continued, this blade is designed for pure offense, sacrificing all defense for devastating power. It was once wielded by a pirate with a bounty of 200 million berries, who famously defeated a pirate with a bounty of 400 million. However, its cursed nature led to the wielder's eventual demise in battle. He paused to let the crowd absorb the gravity of his words. As one of the rare great grade blades, its value is beyond question. We will begin bidding at 200 million berries, with a minimum bid increment of 10 million berries. The audience buzzed with excitement, and in an instant, hands flew up to place bids. Knowledgeable collectors and wealthy nobles raised the stakes rapidly, driving the price over 400 million berries in less than 30 seconds. On Alex's side, he remained calm, refraining from joining the bidding frenzy right away. After all, he had plundered over 100 million berries from pirate ships recently, a considerable sum but nowhere near enough for a proper bid. Instead, he sat back, already prepared to act by more unorthodox means. The bids continued, until finally an elderly noble closed the deal with an offer of 460 million berries, securing Akazakura as his prize. One of the attendants on the left carried the sword backstage, while the other stepped forward, placing the black box on the podium before the host. The host's demeanor shifted to one of solemnity as he carefully opened the box. The contents were then projected onto a large screen via Den Mushi, allowing everyone a clear view of what lay inside. Resting safely within the box was a devil fruit, its brown surface marked by the signature spiral patterns. A murmur spread through the crowd, as nearly everyone recognized the rarity and importance of such a fruit. Among the seasoned attendees of Sabaodi's auction, even the sight of this mysterious fruit was enough to captivate the room. A devil fruit may not be as valuable to some as the famed Akazakura, especially to swordsmen who prioritize mastering renowned blades. Yet, the allure of a devil fruit is unique. Anyone who consumes it gains transformative powers, making it a coveted treasure of the sea, one that attracts interest from all sides. Unlike a sword, a devil fruit offers its user a wholly new ability, a change so significant that both pirates and nobles alike can't resist its appeal. Noticing the charged atmosphere, the host felt a surge of satisfaction. As an expert auctioneer, he understood the true worth of a devil fruit, a secret treasure of the sea. With a soft tap on the table, he regained the crowd's full attention. This devil fruit, he announced, his voice commanding, was obtained by one of our partner chambers of commerce, a fortunate acquisition indeed. According to the records in the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia, this is without a doubt a high-ranking Zoan, the bear fruit, model, dire bear and ancient Zoan. The crowd gasped, their excitement intensifying as the host continued. The dire bear form grants immense strength and durability, with an agility that rivals even the fiercest of the ancient carnivores. Whoever wields this power will find themselves elevated to new heights. With this fruit, becoming a force to be reckoned with on the seas is no mere dream. And yes, for those with different ambitions, it could also make for a powerful slave, perfect for increasing your reputation in the noble circles or Colosseum fights. The host's skillful words fanned the flames of desire among both pirates and nobles alike, sparking a storm of chatter and excitement in the auction hall, far surpassing the response to the Akazakura. Watching this, the host's smile broadened. He lifted the gavel, his tone dropping to a dramatic timbre. And now, for the grand finale, the bear fruit, model, dire bear, up for bidding. The starting price is 120 million berries, with a minimum increase of 10 million berries per bid. Bang! The sharp strike of the gavel sent the crowd into a frenzy. Number plates shot up across the hall, and voices called out as bids escalated rapidly. 130 million berries. 150 million. 200 million berries. The bids soared, passing 400 million berries in mere moments, the competition fierce. The heated bidding thinned the crowd to a handful of determined buyers. Those forced to drop out looked on, torn between frustration and temptation, considering if the fruit's worth justified angering the auction's powerful backers. The stakes had never been higher, and the tension in the room was palpable as the auction continued. For Alex, these concerns were trivial. He'd never hesitate for an instant, not even for the forces backing this auction house. He came for what he wanted, and nothing would stand in his way. Listening to the host reveal the devil fruit's abilities, Alex's resolve strengthened. All he needed to do now was seize the prize. Ignoring the commotion of the ongoing auction, he closed his eyes, his pupils sharpening as he drew upon his power. Crackle, crackle. Invisible currents of electricity flickered around him as his presence intensified. Whoosh! In the enclosed auction hall, a sudden gust swirled, gathering force. A fierce, tangible aura heavy with authority radiated from Alex, surging outward like a tidal wave. Buzz! In an instant, his conqueror's haki flooded the room, sweeping through with a crushing force that felt like the weight of the sea itself. The pressure hit the crowd like a sledgehammer. Thud! Nearly 1,000 spectators collapsed, eyes rolling back as they fainted in their seats, dropping one after another in waves. Now this is what I call dominance, Alex murmured, pleased with his work. This ability was entirely different from intimidating beasts. Here, one thought alone could bring down an entire room of weak-willed individuals. He could truly feel the singular power of Conqueror's haki, a gift only one in a million possessed. Time for a little reward, he said, stretching before standing and heading towards the treasures stored backstage. Among the display stands, Akazakura sat in the most prominent position, its scabbards dark crimson adorned with cherry blossom motifs. Alex reached out, lifting the blade and admiring its weight. So light, he mused, running his hand along the sheath. Despite being one of the finest crafted weapons, Akazakura felt as light as a feather. Drawing the sword, he watched the gleaming blade catch the light. Its edge shimmered with an intensity that hinted at its deadly precision. Intrigued, he picked up another famed sword from the display, holding Akazakura in his other hand. Without hesitation, he brought Akazakura down on the other blade in a single, smooth stroke. Clang! Sparks flew as the blade cut clean through the other sword, which shattered and fell to the floor in two halves. A weapon worth tens of millions of berries, now broken. Now that's a blade, Alex said, his expression bright with satisfaction. Not only was it light and swift, but its sharpness was unparalleled. He began to wonder if, like the legendary sword Inma, this weapon's power might be enhanced by infusing it with haki. Just as he prepared to test this theory, his observation haki alerted him he sensed a large number of people moving towards the auction house, positioning themselves around it in an encirclement. The hunt was on. Enjoyed this book? If you'd like to continue the journey, visit my Patreon email protected/cosmic commentary. As a patron, you can access the next 10 chapters for free and help decide whether to continue to translate the book by voting it. Additional chapters will be released once any of my previous books are completed. In the meantime, this book will remain available exclusively on Patreon for the next 1 to 2 months. Thank you for your support. Waiting outside the auction house, Alex scanned the surroundings and saw Marines beginning to encircle the building. By his estimate, they had arrived quickly, faster than expected, even with observation haki monitoring the scene. It seemed word had spread almost instantly, as the Marines had intercepted all communications from within, including the Den Den Mushi. In just 10 minutes, a fully armed marine garrison, no doubt coordinated by the nearby naval headquarters, had taken up their positions, ready for confrontation. When Alex finally stepped out, the school-ranked marine officer standing at the forefront held back the command to fire. Instead, he raised his voice, declaring, "Assaulting the nobles and disrupting an auction house are serious crimes. Surrender now, or we will use force." At the officer's words, the surrounding marines lifted their rifles, all aiming straight at Alex, waiting for his response. "And if I don't surrender?" Alex replied coolly, glancing around as he drew his sword, Akazakura, from his side. Holding the famed blade in hand, his fingers itched with anticipation. Fire! Bang! 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 At the officer's command, a barrage of bullets and cannon fire tore through the air, raining down on Alex like a furious storm. Whoosh! But in a flash, Alex moved faster than the bullets, leaving only a black blur of after-images as he dodged the barrage effortlessly. Within moments, he had slipped through the encirclement, closing in on the marines stationed tens of meters away. The blade in his hand gleamed, and with a powerful swing, "Gah!" A dozen marines cried out in pain, blood spilling as they were sent flying backward. "Damn it!" Seeing his comrades fall, a group of marines rushed forward with swords and rifles, anger overtaking their caution. Without hesitation, Alex raised Akazakura, unleashing a sharp, blinding sword slash that sliced through the incoming artillery shells. The rounds exploded in midair, bursting into dust as his flying slash tore through the ground and atmosphere alike, barreling straight toward the marines. Swish! Just as the marines widened their eyes in panic, another powerful flying slash cut through the air from the opposite side, meeting Alex's attack head-on. The two slashes collided, cancelling each other out and sparing the garrison from further harm. At the same moment, Alex sensed a second, needle-sharp attack approaching from his side. His observation haki alert, he quickly pivoted, bringing Akazakura up to block. The blades clashed with a piercing screech, each parry and strike brimming with a fierce, razor-sharp energy. Seeing the initial move fail, the opponent quickly adjusted, using shave to create distance between themselves. In a flash, the opponent leaped back and slashed forward, unleashing a powerful crescent-shaped sword strike. This time, the attack was coated in a deep, potent armament haki far more formidable than the standard marine techniques Alex had seen before. Intrigued, Alex responded in kind, channeling his own haki into his sword with emission, meeting the attack head-on. Boom! The clash was intense. Though the opponent's armament haki began to dissipate against Alex's, his attack still shattered through the sword energy and tore into the ground, forcing his opponent back several meters. As the distance opened, Alex finally took a clear look at his opponent's face. The marine officer nearby gasped as he recognized her, exclaiming, "Rear Admiral Jun." Alex was also familiar with her reputation. Standing before him was Jun, also known as Momuzagi, a prominent figure among the Marines and one of the candidates for the position of future admiral. The tall, black-haired woman wore a coat bearing the insignia of a high-ranking Marine and held her famed sword, Kinpura, which clashed brilliantly against Alex's Akazakura. "Everyone, fall back and call for reinforcements," Jun commanded firmly, her voice sharp. "This opponent is beyond your capabilities." Through only a few exchanges, Jun had gauged Alex's strength. His observation haki, his armament haki, and his swordsmanship were leagues beyond what she'd expect in the first half of the Grand Line. She could tell that he was holding back, a fact that unsettled her. Though she was a seasoned rear admiral with a reputation even within Marine headquarters, her untrained subordinates would only be burdens against an opponent of this caliber. "Who are you?" she demanded, her weapon held at the ready. "If you're not a pirate, why are you causing trouble here?" After briefly recalling the notable pirates in this part of the Grand Line, Jun found she had no information on this man before her. "Pirates aren't the only ones who break the law, you know," Alex replied with a casual shrug. Then, with a hint of a smirk, he added, "But I suppose rules are rules, aren't they? In the world governed by the Marines, anyone who dared to set out to sea without authorization was labeled a pirate, regardless of their reasons." Hearing his words, Jun's expression grew colder, her red-brown eyes narrowing sharply. She steadied her stance and, with a swift step forward, closed the distance between them. Her fierce attack launched a storm of sword strikes, each aimed with deadly precision at vital points. Alex shifted back, retreating to create space. With armament haki coating his Akazakura, he noticed something unusual. His haki seemed to flow toward his sword almost involuntarily, as if Akazakura itself was drawing in the energy. Swinging the blade, he unleashed a powerful counter-strike. When his blade met Jun's attack, her fierce sword energy seemed to fold like paper, her slashes cut down effortlessly by the crimson energy radiating from Akazakura. While Jun's eyes widened in shock, Alex's gaze fixed on his sword, curious about what he'd just experienced. It wasn't just his haki wrapped around the blade. As he channeled armament haki, he felt his energy converge toward Akazakura instinctively, as though the sword itself was somehow amplifying his power. For a moment, Alex realized something vital. Is this an attack style that abandons all defenses? Akazakura seemed to draw in every bit of armament haki he could channel, concentrating it all into the blade alone. This ultimate offensive technique, one that Akazakura seemed uniquely suited for, devoured his haki completely, amplifying the weapon's power to its peak. With this understanding, Alex allowed the flow of haki to continue pouring into Akazakura, heightening its momentum as he prepared for an unrelenting attack. Seeing this shift, Jun didn't back down, instead, she stepped forward with resolve. Shave. In an instant, Jun's figure blurred, her speed far surpassing that of an ordinary marine. Dodging Alex's strike at the last possible second, she lunged forward, her blade coated with armament haki as she launched a lightning-fast counter-attack. Without moving from his spot, Alex pivoted, tilting Akazakura's hilt downward while lifting the blade. His sword met Jun's strike in perfect timing. Boom! Whoosh! The force of their clashing haki and sword techniques whipped up a powerful gust around them. Clang! In that intense moment, Akazakura already coated in Alex's armament haki flared with a deep, crimson hue, as though the sword itself was infused with blood. With a vicious hiss, Jun felt a sharp sting in her wrist as her haki coating shattered under the pressure. Forced to retreat, she leaped back tens of meters, her eyes wide with shock. Impossible! She struggled to comprehend what had just happened. My shave's speed is known across the Marines. It's what earned me the title Momuzagi for my rabbit-like agility and unpredictability. Yet, this man before her had not only blocked her attack without needing to dodge, but he also seemed to anticipate her movement, meeting her blow as if he could read the exact direction of her strike. And his haki, her own armament haki entanglement had been broken, completely overwhelmed. This level of swordsmanship and control over haki is rare even in the New World. How could someone like this be here, on Sabayati Archipelago? Who is he? Before she could gather her thoughts, Alex launched another assault. Whoosh! With lightning speed, he vaulted high into the air, Akazakura raised above him. Lion, Thousand Slice Valley! Several enormous slashes arced through the air, descending toward the ground with devastating force, each strike gouging deep, jagged cracks upon impact. Realizing the immense power behind his haki, Jun understood that she couldn't risk a direct clash. Not one to rely solely on brute strength, she dodged skillfully, moving in rapid succession to avoid each descending blow. So, the future admiral candidate is all about speed, Alex mused to himself, admiring her agility. With a keen awareness of Akazakura's unique properties, Alex felt a deep resonance between his haki and the blade. His attacks with Akazakura were now as potent as if he had coated his entire body in haki, amplifying his swordsmanship to new heights. With his stamina waning and the risk of marine reinforcements arriving, possibly even someone like Garp, Alex decided it was time to end this quickly. He took a step back, speaking calmly to Jun. Then, let's wrap it up here. Hearing his words, Jun hesitated for a moment. His demeanor suggested he was serious, yet confident enough to make her wary. Squatting slightly, Alex braced himself. He's going to try to finish this with one final move. At once, Jun raised her guard, wrapping Kinpura tightly in armament haki. She locked onto Alex, honing her observation haki to its limit, ready to react to the slightest movement. Though her strength rivaled that of a vice-admiral, she had been at a disadvantage throughout this fight. Jun wasn't about to underestimate him. Whoosh! In an instant, Alex disappeared. The next blink brought him right into Jun's line of sight, his figure looming large before her. His speed had doubled, thanks to his devil fruit power, and he struck with blinding precision. Impossible! He was holding back all along. Jun thought in shock, realizing she couldn't evade. Just as he had anticipated her every move earlier, she now relied solely on her observation haki to track the attack's trajectory. She raised her sword just in time to intercept the blow. The two legendary blades clashed again. As sparks erupted on impact, a shockwave burst from the clash, fracturing the ground beneath them. Crack! The ground split wide, cracks radiating outward. Once again, Jun's armament haki faltered under Akazakura's amplified power, her defenses buckling. Akazakura, empowered by Alex's haki and his boosted speed, bore down on her with devastating force. The ground beneath her heels shattered, creating a fan-shaped fissure as she struggled to maintain her stance. Finally, the relentless pressure forced her back, and with a tremendous crash, Jun was launched across the battlefield, slamming into the outer wall of the auction house. Boom! 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 Debris scattered as she hit the wall, leaving a deep impact crater. Before she could fully regain her footing, Alex was already upon her, his blade arcing upward to knock Kinpura from her grasp. The sword clattered to the ground, leaving her defenseless as Alex lowered Akazakura to rest against her shoulder. You lose. As Alex judged the result, Jun lifted her head in astonishment. It seemed she couldn't comprehend her opponent's sudden surge in strength, but in an instant, she was helplessly defeated. Though the loss stung, she had to accept it. Losing was losing. Jun, now restrained, glared at him defiantly. It won't be long before reinforcements from naval headquarters arrive on this island. You attacked a rear admiral, there's no escaping from here. Her words rang true. Under earlier orders, the garrison would have already alerted naval headquarters. With her connection to Chief of Staff Tsuru, support was bound to arrive swiftly. Alex looked at Jun and smirked. And what if I took you as a hostage? Then I'd rather die. Jun retorted coldly. Don't worry, he replied, laughing slightly. Even an opponent is far more valuable alive than dead. Without waiting for her response, Alex unleashed his haki. His terrifying conqueror's haki surged forth like a storm descending from the sky, crashing down upon Jun. Already drained and barely able to resist, Jun held onto consciousness with sheer willpower, but her body failed her, leaving her limp and powerless. Marines will soon secure the port, she said, still staring defiantly even in her weakened state. You won't escape from here. No one could leave the Sabayati archipelago once the port was under Marine control. Alex laughed aloud and, glancing at the Marine garrisons moving in to rescue her, declared, who says the only way out is the sea? Isn't the sky just as wide? With that, he bent down and pressed his hands firmly against the ground of Grove 1. Bang! The earth began to shake violently. Many Marines, armed and prepared, stumbled as the ground trembled beneath them. The terrain shifted rapidly, the grassy ground transforming as though into a desert in an instant. Sand and soil surged to life, churning upward, forming vast sandstorms that swept across the Marines, burying them beneath waves of quicksand. Heavy mortar placements were swiftly overwhelmed by the rolling stone and sand, consuming all ammunition until massive mounds, over 10 meters high, formed trapping the entire garrison within. This is, the power of the float fruit, an officer muttered in shock, using moonwalk to retreat from the area's tremors, his eyes wide with disbelief. Although he was only a major stationed here, this officer had been present at the fierce battle that nearly destroyed half of Marineford a few years ago. Even if the technique differed, he recognized the ability to make the ground float all too well. The same thought crossed Jun's mind. But before she could process it, a massive section of the ground beneath her along with part of the auction house began to break away. With a deafening roar, the entire surface lifted, defying gravity, and tore free from the island's grip, floating steadily into the air. Damn it! The officer cursed, attempting to step forward using moonwalk, but was flung back as he collided with an invisible barrier. Helplessly, he watched Alex ascend with Rear Admiral Jun into the sky until they faded from view. Meanwhile, far from the Sabayati archipelago, hidden in clouds thousands of meters above, an empty pirate ship hovered in the air. This was Alex's backup plan. Landing smoothly on the deck of the airborne ship, Alex felt an unexpected sense of satisfaction. In a world like this, he mused, a floating ship had a particular charm even if it was a vessel he'd taken by force. Setting Jun down, he noticed her expression was still one of shock. He couldn't help but smirk. Well? We're no longer in the Sabayati archipelago. So much for controlling the port. Before boarding, Alex had confiscated Jun's den mushi and other items to ensure no one would know their whereabouts. The sky, after all, was a domain few Marines could reach. I never expected. You're the same jailer who killed the Golden Lion, Jun murmured. Oh? So you recognize me? Alex didn't deny it but was a bit surprised. After years of training and changes in diet, his appearance had altered considerably. Ignoring his question, Jun continued, you killed the Golden Lion for his devil fruit ability. So why did you kill Burndy World? It's impossible for a human to wield 2 devil fruit powers, and you didn't take anything with you when you left. So was it a personal vendetta? Alex stared at her, momentarily speechless. Hey, you're my prisoner now. And yet you still think you're in a position to interrogate me. He chuckled slightly, then shook his head. Marine certainly has its share of strategists. I wonder, was it Sengoku the resourceful general or chief of staff Tsuru who deduced that? Doesn't matter, though. It's a shame Marine is just a tool carrying out the world government's orders. At this, Jun bristled. Despite her restrained condition, she flared with anger, her Marine cloak of justice rippling as she snapped, Marine and the world government represent peace and order across the seas. You dangerous criminals have no right to look down on that. Alex didn't argue. With the power of the float fruit, he possessed a strategic force capable of reshaping entire landscapes. In a way, controlling such a potent ability did make him a threat. If he chose, he could easily raise or sink the entire Sabayati archipelago. Though he didn't consider himself a hero, he wasn't the type to treat innocent lives as disposable either. Here the chapter will be uploaded in alternate days. If you want to read in advance, check out my email protected/cosmic commentary. I wonder, Alex said, is this piece you speak of meant for the nobles or for the common people? Sitting cross-legged in front of Jun, Alex seemed almost conversational, despite Jun's restrained state. Although she was his captive, the scene unfolded more like a clash of ideologies than a confrontation between victor and prisoner. If anyone else had witnessed it, they would likely have been shocked at how swiftly the topic shifted. Yet, in this moment, both of them forgot their surroundings, compelled by the tension of their beliefs. Of course, it's for everyone. Jun began defensively, but her voice faltered as if some thought restrained her words. She quickly answered again, more measured this time. As a high-ranking Marine officer, she was aware of certain incidents details Chief of Staff Tsuru had shared that went beyond what ordinary Marines knew. She understood that not everything the world government did was in the open. But still, she doubted Alex could know anything substantial. Oh, really? Alex's tone turned cold. Then, by that logic, you're aware of events like the O'Hara incident and the manhunt on Baitrilla Island, right? For the sake of a so-called criminal bloodline, Marines hunted down every woman on Baitrilla who gave birth, and it went on for a full year. Do you realize how many innocent mothers and children suffered because of this? He paused, watching her reaction, then continued, and O'Hara? On nothing more than the world government's word, they unleashed a buster call to erase an ancient center of knowledge that had existed for thousands of years. Nearly every resident was wiped out. Do you call that peace? Jun's face remained tense, but she didn't answer immediately. Alex, having clear knowledge of the world government's dark history, knew the effect his words would have. Originally, he'd intended to capture her simply for the sake of practice, but now he felt the pull to challenge her faith in the marine system. She clearly held a sense of justice, not the harsh absolute justice of Akainu, but something more nuanced. With that in mind, Alex thought he might even be able to sway her. A future Marine Admiral candidate, as powerful as she was, and with her well-known reputation as one of the flowers of the Marines, would be a significant ally. Jun clenched her jaw and finally replied, the scholars on O'Hara endangered the world with their obsession with ancient weapons and rewriting history. They brought the buster call upon themselves. Alex sneered. So the world government says, and they expect everyone to blindly believe it. Just like they could have said anything about me killing the Golden Lion or world, they could label it a fallacy or call me a dangerous criminal. Does that make it true? Jun's gaze hardened, but for a moment, doubt flickered in her eyes. If those scholars really had such dangerous intentions, why would they gather so openly on that tiny island, waiting for the buster call? Alex's voice was calm but piercing. Even as they faced certain destruction, they chose to remain with the tree of knowledge to the end. He paused, watching Jun's reaction. Even if we set aside their intentions, it was the world government that forced the entire civilian population of O'Hara to pay the price, alongside the scholars. It was Marine that delivered that sentence. For a moment, Jun had no response. She couldn't ask how Alex had learned these details, nor could she deny the unease the memories stirred within her. The facts he spoke of were real, and she felt a knot of discomfort, unable to find words to refute him. After all, it was this very incident that had changed Admiral Kuzan, turning him from a proactive Marine into one who followed a lazy justice. Still, it's undeniable that the world government has, in some ways, maintained global order, created laws, and brought peace. The Marines have protected countless islands from outside threats. Alex's sudden, almost approving words startled Jun. But she sensed there was more, a calculated approach he was using to dismantle her faith, piece by piece. He leaned forward, his gaze hardening. But today's world government has become corrupt to the core, he said. The evil caused by its hidden deeds has long outweighed any good it claims to uphold. Jun stayed silent as Alex continued, let's consider just a few points and see if they align with your sense of justice. He took a measured breath and began, first, the world government demands that allied nations pay the heavenly tribute. I don't know the exact amounts, but plenty of countries have gone bankrupt just to meet that demand. Their citizens not only pay this heavenly tribute but are still taxed by their own nations. His gaze sharpened. You've traveled widely, Jun, but there are places you haven't seen, countries where only the nobles live in luxury while the common people starve. So many of them are driven to piracy out of sheer desperation because they have no other way to survive. And what does the world government do with this heavenly tribute? Alex pressed on. Do they use it to support the people or to address these hardships? No. It goes to the celestial dragons to ensure they live in excess while the rest of the world suffers. The Marines themselves operate on the backs of these common people's sacrifices. Yet in times of crisis, it's only the lives of the celestial dragons that truly matter. He watched Jun, who sat quietly, her jaw clenched, a glint of reluctance in her eyes. Alex could feel his words striking a nerve, each one chipping away at her loyalty to the system she'd served so faithfully. His advantage came from his knowledge of the plot. Having once pored over every detail of this world's grim history, Alex now found it a potent weapon. And in this world, with the world government serving as the villainous foundation, its corruption was well known, deeply embedded in the lives of countless people. This gave him ample ammunition to challenge her ideals again and again. But Alex knew there were no absolutes in this world. He had chosen to stand against the world government, driven by his own interests. Yet, what he was telling her was undeniably true. The distrust of the world government has been deeply ingrained in people's hearts, and even if it tries to manipulate its image, Alex feels no guilt in calling it out. Using his words as weapons to penetrate Jun's psychological defenses, Alex pressed forward without giving her a moment to gather herself. The second question is about the celestial dragons, those privileged few who receive the heavenly tribute. I don't need to explain who they are. As a marine, you probably know better than I do, he said, his voice sharp. Their cruelty rivals that of pirates, if not surpasses it. They treat civilians as mere playthings, utterly worthless in their eyes. Under their leadership, evil acts like slavery and human trafficking have become widespread. He continued, relentless. On one hand, the world government claims to maintain order and promote peace. Yet, on the other, the very celestial dragons it serves lead the slave industry, paving the way for so much destruction and tragedy. He looked her straight in the eye. Civilians are forced to bow to the celestial dragon's might, hiding their hatred out of fear just as the world government enforces its rule through strength, with you, the Marines, as their most effective weapon. As Alex prepared to press further, Jun, who had remained silent until now, suddenly broke in, her voice sharp and tinged with hysteria. Enough! What are you trying to say? What do you want from me? Do you expect me to turn my back on the Marines, to hate the world government? Alex nodded calmly, meeting her gaze. Yes, that's exactly what I intend. The bluntness of his response stunned Jun, but she quickly regained her composure, shouting with conviction, do you think I would betray the Marines as you wish? I am a rear admiral. Yet Alex could sense the tremor in her voice, the slight shake that betrayed her internal struggle. Despite her words, her heart wavered. He pressed on, his voice unyielding. Remember what I asked you earlier? Has this so-called peace actually protected civilians, or is the justice you claim to uphold merely justice for the world government? The weight of his question hit hard, compounded by the painful truths he'd laid bare. It subtly chipped away at her understanding of justice. Unlike the brainwashed agents of the CP organizations, Jun had her own sense of justice. As a Marine, she prided herself on a justice that resonated with the beliefs of her comrades, a justice that honored both the Marines and the people who placed their faith in them. Jun joined the Marines with a simple, honorable purpose, to see her homeland protected from pirates. Yet, as Alex's words echoed in her mind, the conviction she once held began to twist with guilt and uncertainty. To put it plainly, the Marines were a part of the same bureaucracy as any other, rife with hierarchy and power struggles. The higher one climbed, the more of the world's flaws they could see, with greater power came even greater limitations. And slowly, the idealistic beliefs that inspired one to join could become distorted over time. Seeing Jun's troubled state, Alex felt an unusual empathy, sensing the turmoil in her heart. Her deepening self-doubt and denial hinted that his words had left a mark, so he decided it was time to push her further. How about we make a bet, he asked, his eyes meeting hers. Jun's gaze narrowed, searching his expression. What kind of bet? The dark side of the world government runs even deeper than you think. Take the white city of Flavance, for example, Alex began, his tone grim. It thrived for a time, but its people are already doomed. Soon, that country will face devastation, and when that happens, the world government will look the other way. Jun's reaction was immediate. How is that possible? Flavance is a member of the world government, she countered, disbelief coloring her voice. Alex's expression remained calm. That's the bet. When the end comes for Flavance, the world government will abandon it. They might save the nobles, but the common people? They'll be left to fend for themselves. Peace and protection are reserved for the privileged few. Jun's eyes hardened, reluctant to accept his wager. And what makes you so sure? I know, Alex replied, his tone unreadable. And now, you almost know, too. He gestured to her marine insignia. You have the power to investigate it yourself. Jun blinked, her expression softening slightly. Are you letting me go? With a hint of regret in his voice, Alex replied, I'd rather not be surrounded by someone who wants me dead. Besides, this is all just conjecture. Flavance's collapse will happen in a few years. As a marine, you can look into it yourself. I'm betting that when the truth finally comes out, it will change something within you. Of course, the wager was only an excuse. For Alex, testing Jun's beliefs was also a measure of his own influence, his own growing power. But more than that, he wanted to pull her, a potential future admiral, into this murky reality. Witnessing such a tragedy firsthand, after fighting so hard for justice, was a blow that might shake her entire worldview. The people of Flavance were already condemned. Their sickness, poisoned by the toxic amber lead, was a known hazard, and the world government's silence in the face of Flavance's wealth only ensured its grim fate. Even Sengoku and Kong, the commander-in-chief, remained chained by the government's restrictions in the end. Dragon rebelled, Kuzan adopted a stance of lazy justice, and now Jun, another marine bound by loyalty, faced her own reckoning. I never agreed to this bet, Jun said sharply, but her tone wavered. Both of them understood what was at stake. And Alex, reading her closely, knew that beneath her defiant exterior, her resolve was already beginning to crumble. Naval Headquarters. Marine Ford. This was the legendary bastion of justice, a fortress renowned worldwide as the stronghold against the scourge of pirates. At this moment, in the office of the newly appointed Fleet Admiral, Sengoku the Buddha, tension ran high. Have they still not found her? Sengoku demanded, anxiety clear in his voice. The Vice Admiral who had entered to report could only offer a strained smile. We've deployed nearby warships to search the area, but there's still no trace of Rear Admiral Jun. The situation was far from ideal. Based on their analysis, the enemy possessed the float fruit, allowing them to travel not just by sea but also through the elusive skies, making tracking nearly impossible, like searching for a needle in the ocean. Now, Sengoku, Garp chimed in, trying to ease the tension as he observed the Vice Admiral's discomfort under Sengoku's scrutiny. The enemy's a float user. Their movements are just as unpredictable as those of Shiki back in the day. You and I both know how slippery they can be. Sengoku's expression tightened. It's that jailer from Impel Down a few years ago. The one who somehow managed to obtain the float fruit ability. His voice grew heavier, burdened with frustration. I didn't think that unassuming jailer from back then would grow strong enough to defeat Jun without so much as a scratch. Are we on the verge of facing a new flying admiral? And he didn't just defeat her, Sengoku continued with rising anger. He abducted a rear admiral from naval headquarters itself. How could someone with the float ability act so brazenly? If Alex had been present, he might have retorted that the power of the float fruit was indeed meant to defy limits, but he wasn't there to quip. And in the fury of the Fleet Admiral's office, no one else dared to test Sengoku's patience, except for his old friends who had stood by him through countless battles. There's likely no immediate danger to Jun, came the calm voice of Chief of Staff Tsuru. Her tone remained steady, yet those familiar with her knew how deeply worried she must have been. Jun's close relationship with Tsuru was well known within Marine Ford, and Tsuru's words carried extra weight. The fact that she was taken rather than injured suggests they may want something specific, Tsuru continued. Sengoku's shoulders eased slightly, though he remained tense. Tsuru, what do you think their goal could be? Could it have something to do with the Shishibukai proposal? With the onset of the Great Pirate Era, the government had recently introduced the Shishibukai system, a policy that offered pirates limited legality in exchange for their cooperation. Sengoku couldn't help but wonder if this stranger had some ulterior motive connected to it. After all, it wasn't unusual these days to hear pirates boasting about their aspirations to join the Shishibukai. Tsuru shook her head thoughtfully. It's hard to say. But if they want something, I expect we'll receive a call from a Den Mushi soon enough. There was an unspoken thought lingering in Tsuru's mind, one she didn't share aloud. The possibility that Jun had been taken hostage, or that someone could use her image as a disguise, was a troubling scenario. Given her experience with the world's darker dealings, she knew the lengths to which enemies might go. But this was Jun, someone dear to her, and she didn't want to dwell on that possibility. At that moment, hurried footsteps approached from outside the office, and a marine's voice broke through before he even reached the door. Report to the Fleet Admiral. We received a Den Mushi call from Rear Admiral Jun. Sengoku sprang up immediately. Bring it in. Now. The marine quickly handed the branch's Den Mushi to Sengoku, then stepped back outside, leaving the trio in tense silence. The Den Mushi stayed silent for a moment before Tsuru, unable to wait any longer, called out, Jun. The Den Mushi suddenly came to life with a familiar, clear voice. Sister Tsuru, it's me. Tsuru's heart eased a bit, though concern still edged her tone. Jun, are you alright? What happened? Jun replied, he let me go. I'm on Bormei Island, near Sabayati. Both Sengoku and Tsuru echoed her response in disbelief, he let you go. I don't know why, Jun answered, sounding equally puzzled. When I woke up, I was just, here, on this island. The trio exchanged looks of surprise. No one had expected this. Tsuru regained her composure first and instructed, understood. Stay put there, Jun. We'll send a warship to pick you up. We'll discuss everything in detail once you're back. Understood, Jun replied, and the Den Mushi call ended with a soft click. With Jun's safety confirmed, the office settled back into the familiar trio's discussion. Sengoku was the first to break the silence. What do you make of Jun's account? What's there to think? Garp replied, relaxed now. Didn't she say that Brat left her on the island while she was unconscious? His easy tone contrasted with the tension in the room, and he casually leaned back on the couch, picking his nose without a care. Tsuru crossed her arms, frowning. Garp's right. I raised Jun myself. Are you really doubting her, Sengoku? Sengoku sighed, realizing he'd let his concern color his words. No, of course not. Jun's as much a part of our marine family as any of us. I was only trying to understand why Alex would do this. We're not all-knowing, Sengoku, Tsuru said calmly. We can only piece together as much truth as we're given. Garp chuckled, adding, yeah, like how Roger turned himself in just to spark his own crazy era of pirates. Garp, you idiot, if you're going to speak, try to make sense. Sengoku snapped, snatching a rice cracker from Garp's hand, looking irritated and baffled. Tsuru watched her lifelong friends, two high-ranking officers who still managed to bicker like old times. Shaking her head with a sigh, she turned to leave the office but paused to offer a final word of caution. Since Jun's unharmed, our next focus should be on Alex. With the float ability, Conqueror's haki, and formidable swordsmanship, he's like the second coming of the Golden Lion and younger, too. From here, there's no telling how far he could rise. The giveaway was for Patreon members, free and paid. To enter the giveaway you need to join there. The next chapter will be uploaded day after tomorrow. With the swift advance of the marine warship, it took less than an hour to reach Barame Island from Marineford. Rear Admiral Jun was promptly brought back to headquarters by Vice Admiral Tsuru herself. Fortunately, Jun showed no signs of trauma, so Tsuru took him aside to rest and discuss a few matters privately. Meanwhile, Sengoku sat alone, scrutinizing a recently faxed photo from the intelligence team, a snapshot of Alex summoning a massive sand-tide waterfall. Few could wield Conqueror's haki, and even fewer had truly mastered it. This Alex possessed both that rare haki and the strength to defeat a swordsman like Jun, as well as the abilities of the Paramecia-type float fruit. In Sengoku's mind, this was the very image of a new flying pirate reminiscent of a past menace. The next day, the World Economic News Agency, under the management of Morgans, dispatched newsbirds across the globe. With marine support and government backing, this headline swept the world stage, inciting a new frenzy among readers. Legendary reappearance. Float fruit successor, new era flying Admiral Alex. The bolded, enlarged title was strategically placed to seize attention at first glance, causing the heart of any reader to race with anticipation. The float fruit, the power once wielded by the infamous Golden Lion Shiki, a pirate as renowned as Whitebeard, the world's strongest man, and the pirate king, Roger. After Shiki's death in Impel Down, countless people had sought the float fruit, hoping to inherit his airborne might and become the next flying admiral. But now, this news shattered those aspirations in an instant. Float fruit? Is this true? Did it really appear again? The paper says he's the one who killed Shiki in Impel Down. He took the float fruit from him. How did he even manage that? Unanswered questions buzzed through the minds of readers. It was known that Shiki died at the hands of Alex and burned the world in Impel Down, yet common knowledge dictated one person couldn't possess two devil fruit abilities. As a result, all eyes turned to Alex's newfound mastery over the float fruit. New era flying Admiral Alex, bounty, 480 million berries, dead or alive. The bounty notice, coupled with his latest feats, only further propelled Alex's fame. At Marine headquarters, inside a secluded residence, Jun held Alex's bounty poster in her hand, staring at it in a daze. It wasn't the mention of his victory over her that occupied her mind but the memory of their conversation and the unusual wager he had proposed. Despite being free to speak, Jun found herself concealing parts of the encounter from her most respected mentors, Vice Admiral Tsuru and Fleet Admiral Sengoku. Though she had intended to report everything over the Den Mushi, something held her back. She recalled her years with them in the Marines and, against her usual instincts, chose to withhold certain details about Alex and their exchange. It wasn't a matter of distrust. Jun felt no reason to withhold the truth, yet something within held her back, as though a part of her had begun to believe in Alex's words on an instinctual level. Staring at Alex's bounty poster, a determined look crossed her face as she whispered, Flavance. News of Alex's actions quickly spread across the seas, catching even the attention of powerful figures in the New World who typically ignored headlines. With word of his possession of the float fruit and the shocking revelation of his killing the notorious Golden Lion Shiki, interest in Alex surged to new heights. In the lawless area of the Sabayati archipelago, within a dimly lit tavern, Shuki slid a newspaper across the table toward Rayleigh. The papers have printed it, Shuki remarked, a hint of amusement in her voice. That guy, Alex, who took down Shiki, is being called the Flying Admiral of the New Era. Rayleigh took a look at the article, skimmed it briefly, then chuckled, a glint of nostalgia in his eyes. Ha ha ha. The Flying Admiral of a New Era, huh? Wonder if he'll cross paths with Shanks someday. I can't forget that straw hat and the old ship from back then. Shuki added with a knowing smile, speaking of Shanks, it's about time he set out for the sea. This new era really has everyone talking. All the way in Tato land, on Cake Island, Charlotte Linlin took a massive bite of cake while scanning the bounty notice with interest. Mama. So, that little upstart managed to get a hold of that old man Shiki's float power. The towering woman leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with ambition. Spread the word, keep an eye out for him. The moment he shows himself, bring him here. I'll host a tea party just for him. Her youngest daughter nearby, the 10-year-old Charlotte Galette, looked puzzled. But, Mama, you're the emperor of the sea. All he has is that one fruit. Does he really deserve his own tea party? Pero, the eldest son, intervened with a sly grin. No, Galette. The float fruit can shift entire landscapes. With that power, Mama could bring her favorite islands into Tato land. Though Pero wasn't as strong as his younger brother Katakuri, his insight into Charlotte Linlin's ambitions was unmatched. Exactly. Linlin exclaimed. My Tato land will expand with even more islands. She wiped crumbs from the corner of her mouth and murmured, besides, I'm curious how that brat managed to get his hands on Shiki's power. Linlin wasn't the only one with such questions on her mind. Meanwhile, aboard the Moby Dick, Whitebeard sat with a contemplative look as his sons animatedly discussed the news. Memories of his past battles with Shiki, the Golden Lion, drifted through his mind. Noticing the old man lost in thought, a few of his sons gathered around, urging him to share more tales of his legendary encounters with Shiki. But there was one figure who stayed apart from the crowd, clutching the newspaper tightly. His hands trembled slightly as he stared at Alex's picture. Does this guy also know how to steal devil fruit abilities? He muttered to himself. No, he's not like me. He can only have one. But if Shiki's fruit disappeared, how did he manage to take it? His whispered questions trailed off, yet no one around him could offer an answer.